Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This week we have comic book writer Joe Corallo to talk about their book, Dahlia in the Dark, and so much more. Joe is the writer and creator of books like She Said Destroyed, The Never Ending Party, Beckstar, and the aforementioned Dahlia in the Dark over at Mad Cave Studios. We talked a bunch of things, including Joe's love for Sonic the Hedgehog and donuts and so much more. So check this episode out. But before you do, visit capesandtights.com for all kinds of reviews, articles, opinions, and more, as well as follow us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. This is episode number 125 with Joe Corallo talking about Dahlia in the Dark over at Mad Cave Studios. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome, Joe. Welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be welcomed.
Yes, exactly, right? It's always one of those weird things because obviously we said hi to each other before we press recording, and I'm like, okay, let's do that all over again. Let's say hi.
Absolutely. Yeah, what are you going to do?
I had I work my day job. I work as a creative director for a brewery, and we had PBS at our brewery doing a special documentary thing for a musician that used to play for or plays for the Rolling Stones, Chuck Leavell. And the first 10 minutes of the entire, we had people invited to come see the music and all that stuff. They played the same song 3 times for the show to make sure they had it correctly edited. And people, I'm like, I think I've heard this song before. The magic of TV and recording.
It's so funny though. I was actually talking about this the other day. I feel like years ago, in the 90s, maybe into the early 2000s, the Rolling Stones were still there was Beatles, Rolling Stones, but it feels like the past 10 years or so, the Rolling Stones have really been pushed off to the side, and everyone just kind of talks about the Beatles. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I mean, I grew up with a family that was very Rolling Stones, and we didn't listen to the Beatles at all. So it's just interesting. We listened to it's a compilation album, but Flowers, was very prominent. So I find that stuff interesting. How the things change and everything. But
yeah, it is funny because I grew up. My dad was more in the Beatles, so it's kind of funny. But seeing this person comment. I mean, Chuck Leavell was a keyboardist for the Rolling Stones since 1982. Yeah. But he's playing for the Allman Brothers. He toured with John Mayer for a little bit too, so he's got a eclectic. People would know him from other things, but he was just rocking. He was rocking hard. But I got to hear the same song over and over and over again for TV because they wanted to make sure they got it right.
That's fine.
But so welcome. Obviously, you're into comics, just like I'm into comics. You tend to write them. I'm guessing you read them as well. But
I do.
Let's give a little bit of a quick origin story on how you got into comics and how you got into creating comics in the first place.
Well, I mean, the origin story is I was at my friend at the time, Brian's birthday party. It was 3rd grade, so I guess he was turning 8 or 9, something like that, and was giving everyone little party favors. I was a big Mega Man fan. I got these little Mega Man figurines, but his one friend got Sonic the Hedgehog comic books, and I was also big into Sonic, really Mega Man and Sonic, very edgy for an elementary school kid. None of that Mario stuff. Get me, the hardcore Gen X characters like Mega Man and Sonic. But I was really wow, they make comics like this, that the story continues, because I was also watching the cartoons. There were the 2 Sonic cartoons. Mm-hmm. There was the really silly one, and then there was the deadly serious one where there was all that drama with his Uncle Chuck being turned into a robot and stuff. It's really kind of horrifying if you think about it. And they were continuing a lot of that story and elements of it in these comics. So then that's how I really got into comics. I remember finding out about that, and then being at Kmart with my mom while she was doing her errands, and they used to sell, comics at places. So you would see them around and you could be like, oh, I want to read that. So it was Sonic the Hedgehog number 28. It's a great cover. It's Sonic like beating up everybody's like been brainwashed by Dr. Robotnik. Anyway, so I started collecting it from there, and then going to dragging my poor parents all over Long Island to go and help me back issue dive, because the natural thing was like, oh, this is 28. I want to get 1 through 27 and everything else and all that. So that's really what got me into it. It would be later, like I stuck with Sonic for a while. Later on, I started getting like some collections and diving into like Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, and all that. Mostly Marvel, other than like the prestige DC stuff, sort of until I got into college. But because when I was getting into high school, that's when you had like Ultimate Spider-Man, Runaways, things like that. So I was reading those. And then college, that was like Sandman and all that stuff. So that's really kind of where it came from. And then I was sort of dipping in and out for a bit. Like there were certain things that like caught my attention, like Walking Dead, Invincible. They were putting out the hardcovers of the James Robinson's and Tony Harris's Starman run. So going and reading those, read all that, and some other things here and there, and then so I was catching up on a lot of that stuff. And it was really the New 52 that got me into like back into going regularly, and I've really been pretty on the ball since then, more or less, like dips here and there, but and I'd be remiss to exclude Weed Not Astonishing X-Men. That was another thing I was going regularly, and as regularly as the comic was coming out, because that started regularly and then was quickly, the schedule got really wonky, but yeah, so that's more or less the origin.
And how did that lead into writing, actually getting into writing comic books?
I always loved creative writing. I took a creative writing course in high school, in college. I used to do with the same friend, Brian. We used to have like, Mega Man and Sonic related like fan fiction and things like that. That's also where I learned I couldn't draw, but which is fine. I remember I sketched out. It's terrible and doesn't exist anywhere, but it was like some one of the villains I created for that was like a partially roboticized Dr. Wily's daughter type character as one of the like antagonists in this like hybrid. And in case of people forgot, it's probably been like 5 or 6 years since Archie, maybe 7, when Archie finally did the Mega Man Sonic crossover. So I'd like to say I was decades ahead of the game on that one. So that existed. No one asked me to be a part of it, which is fine, but I was coming up with that kind of stuff since then. And then I'd collaborate with friends. I'm sure you and a lot of people can probably relate to this, where you have your different friends or something like, oh, I got this like really cool idea for like a thing I want to do, and like you kind of collaborate on stuff and it kind of fizzles out, or they do something crazy, like they get a real job, or they get married and have a life, and then they can't continue on with that. And I was like, forget all of that, I'm gonna write comics. So I started self-publishing around 2011, having no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm just there with my friend Bob Wolf, who has a hugely successful video game YouTube channel, Wolf's Den, doing much better than I in the creative sphere. But we put out a few issues, or 2 issues. We did a third, but we never printed it, of this like superhero parody kind of thing. And we split a booth with some other mutual friends in the small press section at New York Comic Con 2011, which is a terrible idea. I mean, there's no way you're gonna make your money back on that. No one knows. It's a disaster, but it's fine. we split it like so many ways, it didn't really matter. And then, and you also get your tickets for the show, so you can go around and walk around. And we were diagonally across from Tim Sale. So I got to hang out and talk with Tim Sale for a while. It's a real shame he passed last year. It was absolutely brilliant. But so I got like a Superman sketch where we had him like sign a bunch of stuff. Like, we were talking about things. I lugged out my absolute Long Halloween, and he signed and sketched in it. And he goes, they're making Absolute Dark Victory soon. I was like, oh, okay. And he pauses, and then he goes, they'll make an Absolute Edition about anything now. Which was great. I love that because I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but Dark Victory is not great. The art's fantastic, but God, it's hacky writing. Anyway, it's fine. If you like it, who cares? Jeff Loeb is doing great.
Yes, he's doing fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I think he'll be all right. But especially since Long Halloween was just so good.
Yeah.
But it happens. Like, what? Someone made a sequel to something that doesn't quite live up to the original. Get out of here. When's that ever happened? Not in comics. But
we just talked about this at my LCS about Civil War and Civil War II at Marvel. And like the drastic difference between how well Civil War was done, and then Civil War II was like, oh, the only reason I didn't even think I bought it was because I'm a huge Brian Michael Bendis fan, and it was like I kind of feel like I have to buy it.
Yeah. No, I met him once years ago. It was like special edition NYC. I had him sign. I had my hardcover of House of M, so I had him sign that, and like a few other things. But yeah, it's interesting. And like I said, he's part of how I really got sucked into comics with Ultimate Spider-Man. Him and Brian K. Vaughan with Runaways, like that. That's really what got me into like the mainstream comics, like those two. Not that Sonic isn't mainstream, of course, but
are you still reading Sonic right now? Like, are you buying Sonic like weekly or monthly?
I'm not reading it weekly, but I am getting like the hardcover collections of like the IDW stuff, and it's pretty good. I enjoy it, but no, I'm glad they're still doing it. And I also played. I didn't beat it yet, but I played through Sonic Frontiers. I thought it could have been better, but it's Sonic Mania was incredible, though. I have to say that was an incredible game. And there's another 2D Sonic game that's coming out soon. I'm blanking on the name of it, but
I don't remember the name of it either. But I heard I forget what it was. Sonic game. I don't know is it coming out soon? Sonic video games. I don't know. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, I feel like it's like I don't like soon's relative. I don't know.
It says 2023.
Yeah, so that I feel like that's soon. I feel like we can get away with using that word for this.
It just says game. It was announced at Game Fest, Summer Game Fest 2023. Well, they're considering it I guess it says a 2.5D. I don't know what that means.
Okay. All right, that works for me.
I guess it's 2D with the graphics are more 3D, like three-dimensional. Like there's like pops a little bit more, but it's not as simple as 2D. Yeah,
like you can go in the background and the foreground and bounce around, kind of like Sonic Mania did. That works. I'm good with that. That works for me. I know because they're all like, well, what's Joe gonna want? So, but
they thought about that. They were thinking about that. They're like, that person who wrote Dahlia in the Dark. Yeah, let's see what they want for a song.
But like with games though, this is like my year because I've got a Switch and they're remastering Super Mario RPG, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I got that as my 5th grade graduation present, and I've played through that game so many times, and I'm the sucker that's gonna buy it again because they're remastering it. So not only are they remastering that, they're remastering and re-releasing Clock Tower, which I never played, that like Super Famicom game that's very like survival horror, Dario Argento inspired. And they're releasing remasters of the Gex trilogy. And that is something that seems so specific. It's like maybe it, other than like who, like was it Dana Gold, the voice of Gex? I can't imagine who else is really was looking up when Gex was going to be on the Switch, because I got to tell you, that's something I would Google every once in a while, and it's they're really, all of that, the Sonic game. This is my year on the Switch.
Well, we live in a world of nostalgia anyway, so I feel like they could just make a load of money on it. It's probably not super expensive to remaster some of these things and just re-release them. I mean, I remember a number of years ago when they did Spyro and Crash Bandicoot and all that stuff. It was like that was like huge for me, and it's literally just a better looking game. And so when I was younger, I was like really into the BMX and like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and all that stuff. I was playing those games, and I remember a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy Dave Mirra's BMX. It might have been right around the time of his passing, where I was like, I want to like go back there and like respect him by playing his like old school video games somehow. And I remember buying it like on eBay or something like that, like a disc alone, no case, no nothing. It was just a disc for like $5 or whatever it was, and put it in my Xbox, start playing it, and I got sick to my stomach because it was so jarring after playing like actual good like next generation consoles that I was playing this old game, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like the room is moving on me. I was like, so that's maybe one of the main reasons they just should remaster some of these things, so I don't puke in my living room trying to play these old games.
No, that'd be nice. Yeah, it's funny you also mentioned BMX. Last week Rift Tracks Live was happening again. So I went to that, and they were playing that movie Rad. And that was, it's terrible 80s BMX movie. It was absolutely wonderful seeing that.
Classic movie posters though, like it's like classic 80s looking movie poster, the logo Rad and the multiple colors like that. It's just awesome.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Between classic. That and I actually was at one of my favorite restaurants in Manhattan, in the Essex Market. It's Shopson's. I went there one of the times I was there a few years ago. Tony Hawk was there with his daughter. And it was just like hanging. I'm just looking. I'm like, is that Tony Hawk? And the next time I went there after that, they had on display like a signed board. It's funny.
Tony Hawk's awesome. He plays those, like, posts those things online with people who think he looks like Tony Hawk but don't realize that he's actually Tony Hawk.
Yeah,
that's so amazing.
Comedy Bang Bang too. If you ever saw the Comedy Bang Bang episode he was on,
he's great. He's one of those, like me growing up. He's like one of those main figures in my entire life because I was really into skateboarding when I was younger, and then just watching him grow up and be what he is now is it's pretty insane. But so Sonic the Hedgehog. No, let's get into some of the stuff that you created though. Like I love this. I love this generic talk. This is great. I really personally think podcasts should be, if you put a microphone in the room with someone and just trying to have a conversation and be a fly on the wall and listen to it. So getting to know a little bit more about you as a person adds to the people might fall in love with the fact that you love Sonic and they go out and they buy the trade collected paperback of Dahlia in the Dark. Like maybe that's the truth. I don't know. They're not the same. So I would just like warning everybody that the Sonic does not show up in this.
No, Sonic doesn't show up at all. I did see both the live action movies and all that. And so I still keep on top of that stuff. But yeah, I should probably talk about Dahlia in the Dark, which was offline before we start. I said, we got I got my trade comps in the mail. So thank you, Mad Cave, for making that happen. Looks great, smells great. That great smell of like a new trade paperback right outside the shipping box. Wonderful.
I like how the Mad Cave ones feel too. I think they're not satin, but they have that, like, I don't know, it feels nice. They're not like, I don't like the glossy. When there's trades that are glossy, I'm not a big fan of the full on gloss.
I'm not a fan of the full on gloss, but you know what? A couple of other trades. Like I got the from ComicMIx Originals. I also did the Never Ending Party with Rachel Pollack, who passed in April, but they do the spot gloss. So you got like the little spot gloss right there, just with the like logo. I do like that. I'm not
Yes.
saying that they had to do that with, the Dahlia trade at all. It works perfectly not having the spot clause. It's not a contest, but in certain places it works. And I think of this particular trade that.
I think it does work at certain places. But I like that more satin feel, like not satin,
Oh
but
yeah.
like it's like a softer feel to it. It's really
Oh
nice.
yeah.
I just got in the package right before we get on recording my Kickstarter package from Ryan Brown for God Hates Astronauts, and the
Nice.
issue one of that is in like a full, like it's the coolest feeling comic book I've ever felt in my entire life, and I'm like, no, this is definitely a Kickstarter comic book because there's no way that it would be mass produced and sent to comic book shops. Like every single one of them would come in and be like, okay, this one's damaged, this has got a scratch, or this has got whatever, because it was just like it would
Yeah.
have had to come from like Diamond or Lunar in a bag and board for it to protect it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah, but Dahlia in the Dark is your
Yeah.
book with Andrea Milana.
I
Does
think
that
it's
sound right?
Milana. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Andrea Milana. Yeah. And yeah,
And Micah
he's
Myers on letters too.
yeah. Micah also lettered the Never Ending Party
Okay.
with me as well. So we and Micah also was a letterer on a bunch of anthologies I've done. I believe he did some of the stories in the Mine anthology to
Mhm.
benefit Planned Parenthood. Both of the volumes Deadbeats. So Micah Myers and I have been working for or Myers rather have been
Yeah.
working for a while
Wow, together.
together. So that's good. And I should be seeing him again. I think he's going to be at Baltimore. I saw him the last couple of Baltimore Comic Cons, so it's always nice. But Andre Milana, he's doing the Cobra Commander miniseries over at with Joshua Williamson
Yeah.
writing it at Skybound.
Yeah.
So I personally think if anyone wants to understand that book, you should probably read Dahlia in the Dark
Yeah.
first. Get in on the ground floor. That Andre's clearly a rising star, and you
Yes.
want to understand what's going on. You want to get in. You want to get it.
Yes.
And I think a key to that is Dahlia in the Dark.
And I know you're being somewhat sarcastic here, but in the same sense, I will say that there's something about the connected tissue of seeing someone's work on something else. Obviously, it's a given that if you see someone's work and you like it somewhere else, you're gonna search out and find the other stuff. But I've gotten to the point as a comic book hoarder, comic book collector, whatever you want to call it. My wife would say hoarder. I'm a collector. Come on. Then I just buy stuff because it's like, okay, this creator is, and I don't have time to read all of this right now. But it's like,
Oh yeah,
okay, I like such and such, so I'm gonna buy such and such because it's by the same creator, and I'll hold
yeah,
on to it. At some point, I'll read it. At some point, whatever, and I want to collect it. And it's funny because I have way too much stuff from some creators that I'm like, I liked one thing this person did, and now I own their
yeah,
entire anthology of what they do. But the
yeah,
idea that if someone does buy Dahlia in the Dark, maybe they will enjoy Cobra Commander, or the opposite. Hopefully, so when that one actually drops, people go out and pick up the trade a couple months from now because they like the artwork
yeah.
on one or the other. So yeah, there is something to say on that connective tissue there. But yes, there is, not to sell anybody short, there is nothing about Cobra Commander either in Dahlia.
No, for sure. But I do appreciate you saying that the key to Cobra Commander's success is
Yes,
Dahlia in the Dark.
yeah, it is.
So
It's true.
I
Mad Cave is happy
appreciate
with
that.
that too. I'm sure. Mad Cave's for like
Absolutely.
absolutely buy this book. It's the key to the success of the other book. No,
Yeah, no, for sure. But Daniel Warren Johnson's the creator I've
yes.
done that with fairly recently because like I read Murder Falcon and I went
Mm.
back and got the Extremity trades, like things like that, where I was like, oh, this guy's really great. And he's also doing Transformers
Yes.
coming up. And if you want to understand what's going on in that Hasbro universe, I think getting Dahlia in the Dark is key. So
Yes. That's awesome. I love that. That's great. I think it's good. That's a good sales tactic. You should just do it for anything that's connected to, it's really good. If you want to
really,
understand what's going on in
absolutely.
Marvel right now, you really need to buy Dahlia in the
Oh, because well, I mean, he's blown up. He's going to be doing something at
Yeah.
Marvel. Like any week now, there's going to be an announcement, and you're not going to have a clue what's going on until you've read Dahlia. And then you get all like the bragging rights. Because
Yes.
personally, I love being that guy who's like, oh, well, I've actually been a fan of so and so
So
since their
before.
indie work or like something like that. Like I remember when like Dennis Camp was doing Maxwell's Demon, or like that kind of thing. So like or or is it Zach Thompson, Lonnie Nadler, and it's like, oh well, I remember Come Into Me, and that was a
Yeah.
fantastic Black Mass book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I love being that guy, and you can be that guy too by picking up Dahlia in the Dark.
See, two ways you can do this. People will buy it and be pissed that it has no connection to anything and it doesn't matter that had, but you still made the sale. But if it is like something happens and Andrea comes through and does something crazy, like, see, I told you. So either way, I mean, either you make a sale and people are pissed at you, whatever, or you are the actual person who says, I was the person who found this person.
Exactly. It's a win-win, I think. I wasn't really paying attention to exactly what you were saying, but I think you said it was a win-win. So yeah, people should just buy it.
So let's actually tell people what Dahlia in the Dark really is, and what's your little elevator pitch on Dahlia in the Dark.
Yeah, we hit like the half-hour mark, so I guess we should probably talk about the book. So Dahlia in the Dark, like the way it worked, I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll go to sort of the origin of this. Like I did She Said Destroy with Liana Kangas over at Vault, and Liana, again, big name. You get on the ground floor with that one. Go back, check it out.
What's funny about that? You said that is I'm recording 2 podcasts today. And Liana Kangas is coming back on the podcast. They've been on before, but they're on today too. So it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that. You two are back-to-back weeks, so that's pretty good right there.
They're really great.
Yes.
We still keep in touch, even though they're a big megastar and all of that. But we keep in touch. I make people jealous, like, oh I got coffee with Liana, or something like that at a con. It's like, oh my god. But anyway, so you should check out She Said Destroy and all the stuff that Liana's doing, and it's hard to keep track because they do. I think they might be obligated to do every Kickstarter cover.
But because I have the 2 right here. I got Know Your Station.
Know Your Station,
and True Cult, both Liana books. But exactly. They've got a new book coming out at Mad Cave.
Yeah.
Marika Between Worlds. So there you go. Mad Cave right there. But yes.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. But they Mad Cave had reached out to both of us, separately.
Okay. Yes.
In part because of She Said Destroy, and being oh, this was we enjoyed that. And that's how I got to do Beckstar, which is like a sci-fi adventure kind of. I was going for there's some Cowboy Bebop vibes, probably a little more Outlaw Star, if I'm going to be honest, but all that kind of stuff going on there, and that then led to doing Dahlia, and the way that worked, which is similar to Beckstar, is Mark London has sort of an idea that's broken down as like, this is kind of a thing I'm thinking of, so it's like a bare bones kind of thing, but there's a lot of characters in there, so similar to what I did with Beckstar, you kind of either eliminate or combine certain characters, which I think with Dahlia might be a little more shocking because it's a pretty big cast already. I think it was if I'm allowed to put humility aside for a moment, I think it's one of the more ambitious things I've done in comics in terms of just the amount of characters and trying to interweave all these like subplots, because the whole story is really about Donnie and his journey. So for people that don't know, Donnie is this little older, but he's not like old. He's old for a like hired hitman kind of guy, and bit washed up. His replacement, Big Molly Bloom, is basically already set, and is the boss's right hand man, or woman in this case. Big Molly Bloom is kind of set, but it's kind of like, oh well, we're going to give you one more job, and Donnie takes it because he could potentially see his daughter on the way, and wants to reconnect with his estranged daughter that he's had no real connection to for years at this point. So you're sort of starting off this story with 2 people having to work together, Donnie and Molly, who do not like each other, while they have to deliver this package and they don't know how dangerous it is and they don't understand the amount of entities that are after this, whether it's the government or the two warring sides of this fairy war.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize the way I'm saying this now, like people might have been listening to that whole thing and being like, fairy war, what the hell are we talking about? But yes, that does happen because it's got crime noir elements, it's got these sort of urban fantasy elements, and that aspect of it was definitely in Mark's original like concept of trying to have this sort of thing going on between worlds. And I put some of my personal experiences in it, insofar as like the actual drive. Yeah. So like the route they're going through, because I've driven cross country a few times before for different jobs, and I've done like the stretch of the I-80 through like from New York to Iowa. I did New York to Madison, Wisconsin in a day. I've gone from drove from Madison, Wisconsin to El Paso, Texas, like things like that. So like I put a lot of those elements and things into it. It was the kind of thing like I'm looking at this story and what it entails, and I was like, ooh, I could like bring in like this element and that element to it that I thought would be fun. So yeah, it is. It's definitely different from Beckstar. Beckstar, even though Beckstar at some moments can get heavy, I think especially towards the end, Dahlia is a bit more serious. There's not it's not, I don't want to say it's humorless, but it definitely it takes itself more seriously than Beckstar. So it is going to be a different experience. But I think a lot of people, I do think in terms of the art, they're both Italian artists that have the styles. Again, it's like it's different, but you can see some of the similarities in that. I think if you liked the art in Beckstar, you'll appreciate what's going on in Dahlia. I think if you like stuff that's a little more crime noir, or you like stuff that's like a little more serious, I think you'll like that. I think Dahlia is different from any of the other things that really done in a lot of ways. Like it's definitely different from She Said Destroy. Like there's some elements of this like fantasy war and sort of people being stuck in the middle of that, but it's really more laser focused on the war. There's not this other layer that's going on that's in here of this man that just wants to be with his daughter again. So I think there's those elements there that I think will connect to people. So I hope they give it a shot, especially now that it's available in trade.
Yes,
so you can get it. You can get it on Amazon. You can order it through Mad Cave's website. You can it's more easily accessible outside the direct market now. But you can also order it through your LCS.
Yes.
So and that's important too. Whatever is easier for you to get this story, get it. Whether it's your LCS, ordering online, ordering through Mad Cave's website, which is always easy, and I highly encourage everyone to just do that. But yeah, I think there's a lot here, and it's available digitally as well. However you want to take it in. So.
And it's great because I feel like the story is one of those ones that has elements that are in comic books right now, but like the combination of the two, the criminal, like the courier style. I read on a comical opinions website did a comparison of blending it between Transporter the movie and something like Bright, where it has this like Yeah, but the book is way better than the movie Bright, so don't use that as like a comparison of quality. But
Yeah,
it's like has that idea of like moving a package from point A to point B, but also has this like these fairies and fantasy type worlds in it as
true.
well, which is pretty cool. That you don't like I said, you might see either one of those in their own standing books, but like the combination of the two, and it's not something that I think saw from the beginning when I read the first couple pages that this is where it was going, and then I
Yeah,
was like, oh, this is where it's going. And it's kind of cool. It was like, oh, it's a kind of cool twist, and
yeah.
which was really cool. I like that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with that and developing some of these different fantasy elements,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of picking and choosing what would fit. You know, being very particular on that. Like, oh, harpies would fit, werewolves would fit. Like these sort of elements
Mm-hmm.
would fit in this overall story, and also being like, well, what was it? There was the changelings, and
Mm-hmm.
Andre did a lot with that. And Andre's the one who came up with the idea with the not necessarily false eye, but like the special eye that could go out and like
Mm-hmm.
scout and stuff. Like he was building that off of the original concepts of like or older concepts of what a changeling is. So he definitely added that element to the story.
And I was trying to find it. I could have sworn I had the creators of Omnibus on here, the new digital reading app,
Oh, okay.
and I believe you can read the individual issues too on the Omnibus app. So I was just trying to find that out. So at least number one's available. I see that on there. But yeah, I was backing up to the idea that you can buy it wherever it's easiest for you is the truth. I mean, buy it from your LCS if possible, but also one of those things I always try to tell people is that no matter where you buy it, it still tells the world, tells Mad Cave, tells you that it's being sold, and you're getting your return on what how the hard work you put into it. So it's like pick and choose where you want to buy it, but just buy it.
Yeah,
That's the moral of the
absolutely.
story.
No, for sure. And like I am in a bit of an embarrassment of riches. I have an LCS that's not that, it's like under 10 minutes to drive to.
Yeah,
There's another really big one on Long Island, Fourth World, if I want to
yeah.
take not too long of a trip to go, and they carry like a ton of stuff. And there's a bunch of other shops out here, and I'm in Manhattan enough that, again, there's tons of options.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are tons of people who love comics that they're not close to a comic shop, or it's over an hour away, or they're like, I can really only get there like once a month or something like that. But there are other shops too. I think Gmart in the Chicago area
Mm-hmm.
does like online sales. Obviously Midtown Comics does online
Yeah.
sales. Like so there are these other options and places to look into as well. I've ordered stuff off of Gmart in the past, and they've been great. So
I do a lot of like I said, my whole thing is like just because a local comic book store is not your physical local area comic book store, there's still technically an LCS in a sense. So like
yeah,
Third Eye or Challengers in Chicago,
yeah,
those places also have good online stores, very simple
mm-hmm.
shopping experiences and all that stuff. It's still buying from an LCS, but again, buy the book. Like in the
Yeah,
end, it's like wherever you get it, and you get to read it, and so on and so forth. This is what you should get. And the benefit of it being in a trade paperback nowadays is that it's now available on the book market. So like
yes,
when you go to buy, if you want to buy it and you don't have an LCS, but you have a local bookstore, there's a possibility they weren't like, oh, I'm gonna grab this book for our shelves for our readers, but at least
yeah,
tell them, because if you tell them, they can get it. And that
yeah,
way, if you still want to buy local and there's only a bookstore locally, that's the difference between a single floppy issue versus the trade paperback. Once it hits trade paperback, the bookstores are allowed to actually stock it as well, which is
yeah,
pretty cool. And I've
definitely.
said that's like another avenue for people to pick up a book. Um, but I mean, I
Yeah,
really enjoyed the book. So one of those weird things
thank you.
is I started Mad Cave, and Mad Cave's first of all an unbelievable great company to work with on the this side of it, on the reporting, more podcasting,
Awesome.
review side of it. They're very good dealing with that. The people are amazing. Don't Hide PR, Melissa over at Don't Hide does a great job helping connect people like you and I together and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And
Yep.
so obviously Melissa works closely with Mad Cave on that. But
Mm-hmm.
I came into like the beginning of issue one working a little closer with Mad Cave. So I was able to start like catching up to it and getting into it. So I was able to read a couple issues at once. And I'm saying, like, you know what? It worked week to week, but I honestly think it's gonna be amazing for people to read it in one shot in a trade paperback. All sitting down, you can read it all. In a day, if you want to take breaks and read it in a day or two or whatever, but it's something that you can easily read and get through. Like I tend to read a lot at night, and I tend to, like, not because the book's boring, but because I'm tired and exhausted from an entire day of doing things, is that I get through like one or two chapters and I'm like, okay, I'll read the rest tomorrow. It has nothing to do with the actual book usually, but it's like, it's one of those, I just read at night and I tend to fall asleep. So it usually takes me a couple days to read a trade just because of that. Otherwise, I would read it all at once.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I tend to read at night too. So,
but it's got, like you mentioned, the similarities between there is a small amount of similarities between something like she said destroy and Dahlia in the Dark. But one of the things I noticed is that the artwork is different, like Liana's artwork versus Andrea's artwork, in the sense that they're different styles, and also the coloring on Dahlia in the Dark is a little bit more, I don't know, darker, a little bit more grittier. Was that on purpose? Do you think was that like a decision made by the creative team to make it seem, because I mean, obviously Donnie's a little downtrodden, and there was just more like, it's more of a darker story.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's something like She Said Destroy. Rebecca Nalty was the colorist on that. And it's funny because she was from Ireland and went to a St. Bridget school at some point. So we had talked about that. But that kind of story, we wanted something that was more bright and colorful because it kind of also contrasts well with like what's happening, where it's like, this is like bright and colorful, even though this is war, this is something that's inherently darker, whereas with this, Andre did all of his own color. He did all the line work in colors, and that was I don't want to say it's easier, but it's like it's having one conversation with one person as opposed to two separate conversations, and then seeing what would work and all that. Like, and Andre knows his style, what's going to work and what's going to make his work pop, and I think he did a fantastic job at that. And all of his covers, I think, were also fantastic. And we also were very lucky to get Christian. They did a great job with covers as well. And if you get the trade, you get all the in the back, you can see all of Chris's covers as well.
Yes, Chris is an unbelievable artist.
Oh yeah, no,
you've been spoiled in that sense too, working with these great artists and colorists and letters.
No, absolutely. And Chris did basically a variant that we used for our tour that Liana and I did in 2019 promoting She Said Destroy, which I believe was one of their earlier published covers, and really took off from there. Chris knew Liana. I can't take any credit for that, but
well, Liana knows everybody, so that's not fair.
Yeah, no, exactly. But the benefit of that is no one has to know that. They can just assume, me. So why not?
I'll just take credit for it. Don't worry.
Exactly. I don't have to actually take credit. I can let people assume credit.
Yes. Exactly.
Lay back and be like,
So, so the best part about talking to you now is the fact that this book is technically, I mean, we're recording this on a Monday, and this, by the time this releases, it actually release in a week or so, is the book will already be on shelves for people to get, because it does drop on August 23rd at your local comic book shop. So that's nice. I like that. I've talked to other people before. I'm like, well, you have to wait, forever and ever and ever, or it came out 6 months ago. It's like, this is nice little timing on this. By the time you listen to this, you just get in the car, you hear the beginning of this podcast episode, you get in the car and you drive to your LCS and buy a copy of it. That's what you do. That's how you do this.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know why, they didn't already have their store order it and, put it aside for them. But,
it is what it is. It happens. Yeah. And the funny thing about that is I feel like, I don't know, it's just so hard with FOC dates and people who are new to comics. It's just such a confusing thing. I think there are a lot of people. It's not as cut and dry as someone who was in the industry who kind of knows, okay, this makes sense, pre-order,
Yeah.
all this other stuff. So there is this gap on it, but I do think it's a lot easier for comic book stores to take a flyer on a trade that they don't know much about, because people, like, this is the entire collected edition of it. You're not telling someone, oh, I have issues 1 through 3, or I have issues 1, 5, and 7, or whatever it may be. So I do think it's one of those things. Even my LCS doesn't know, obviously there's so much stuff on the market nowadays, doesn't know everything, but we'll take a flyer on reading these solicitations and go, you know what, I'll take 2 copies of that. I'll know I'll be able to sell at least 2 copies of that, so on and so forth. So there's a chance that you go to your LCS and they did order it even though you didn't pre-order it, or you can be like me, who's going to get the trade at the same time I already own all these single issues as well, because I'm just a glutton for punishment here, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was doing that with Saga for like the longest time.
We mentioned the whole reprint, or not reprint, but like like when they re-release and remaster things, is that I fell into the whole of, I'm a big Walking Dead fan.
Yeah.
And so they're releasing the Walking Dead series all in the deluxe edition, which is now colored, and they added a couple pages in the back of it, and there's these new covers and all that stuff. So from issue 1 on my LCS, I'm like, can you just get all the covers, like covers 8th or whatever, and I'll just grab those. And every single month now, or every 2 weeks, I think it is now, they've released the new issue with all maybe 3 or 4 covers, and I've been collecting all of them. I now technically, my number 1 collected series is not Walking Dead, is Walking Dead Deluxe, because there's 70 issues in, there's 4 covers per issue.
Oh wow.
I was just like, oh my god, I have less of the actual original series, and I have most of the original series.
Yeah.
And then the actual reproduction of it. I'm like, I don't know why I fell into this hole of collecting and hoarding of these things. I mean, I'm just making Kirkman more rich. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I got to what was it? I was at a press junket with Geek.com years ago, and it was Oblivion Song was coming out, and he was promoting that. And I got to ask Kirkman a couple of questions. The first question I asked him was, why do you hate Philadelphia so much? And the second question I asked him was what it was like being on Comedy Bang Bang. And after he was talking about being on Comedy Bang Bang, and it was a little awkward, he had to read from the cue cards. He's just like, you could have asked me anything. You could have asked me about this Walking Dead. You could have asked me about this comic. Why are you asking me about Comedy Bang Bang? So I'm like, that's what I want to know about.
All these other people are going to ask you about The Walking Dead and Oblivion Song. Exactly. I want to know about this. I mean, exactly. I don't know. You'd feel like you're almost obligated, and honestly, he probably was thrown off, but refreshed at the same time, because he's answering the same questions to a bunch of different people. So if you have that different kind of a conversation, I can understand that. It makes sense.
No, absolutely. It's like I would rather just wither and die than be the 98,000th person to be like, where did you get the idea for The Walking Dead?
Why is it in black and white?
Well, I thought take a zombie movie, but what happens after? It's like, yeah, I know. Why would I ask you that?
Yes. How do the walkers start? Okay, he's not going to answer that question, so let's just move on from that one. But Dahlia in the Dark on your local comic book store shelves. I'll go to your bookstores and get it. It's amazing. I love it. I love the mixture between a bunch of things. It's action packed. It's thrilling. It's got heart in it as well. You can see the struggles of Donnie. You can see a bunch of different things in there. It's got almost mob boss type stuff going on there too. It's got fairies and fantasy, so it literally has something for everyone. You'd have to say that, right? I mean, it's out of my mouth, so it has something for everyone.
Yeah, it's for kids 9 to 90,
9 to 99.
Yeah, exactly. Just everyone. You know what?
Yes.
And you know what? If you're 8, if you're a wise 8, maybe.
Yes, maybe.
There's some language.
Ask your parents first.
Violence.
Ask your parents first, and then buy it. But the parents should just buy it now to hold on to it to give to their kid when they're ready to read it, so that they get it ahead of time. You get the first release of it, and then Joe can pay his bills. That's what we're looking for.
Exactly. I love paying my bills. It's great. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's good. And if enough people buy this, they'll have to make more. Mad Cave will just be in an awkward spot where they're just like, we're making so much money on Dahlia in the Dark. We'd be stupid not to do more.
Dahlia in the Light.
Yeah, there you go.
Is
There's all
is
sorts
that
of
the
things.
sequel? Dahlia in the Sunset, Dahlia in the somewhat dark, but not really. There's all kinds of options for
Dahlia in the Dusk, I think is
the next one. Is the prequel? Is that the prequel for it? Do you? I mean, obviously, you probably have things you can't talk about and so on and so forth. But are you working on stuff right now? I mean, are you on the next big thing for yourself? Or are you taking a break? What's going on?
Yeah. No, I am. I finished writing my first YA OGN, so I'm excited for that. That should be announced. If it's not announced by the time this goes up, it'll be in the coming weeks. It should be announced by the time I'm at Baltimore Comic-Con, which is coming up in a few short weeks. I'll be there. Was it September 9th, that Saturday? I'll be at that show. And I will also be at New York Comic-Con. And I am flirting with the idea of going out to Rose City.
Okay.
I've never been to Portland before. And I hear the donut culture there is pretty good. So
that's the only reason to go right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love I love going to Emerald City, not just because I have, family and friends out in Seattle, but Top Pot, I love those donuts. Those are fantastic donuts.
You know what? It's perfect. I think that's a great idea. Sign some autographs when you're out there, sell some books, buy some donuts. That's what you should do when you go to Rose City. There you go. That's perfect.
Give me a lime, a lemon frosted old fashioned. You can't just get that anywhere.
No. Well, I do that. I mean, I live in Bangor, Maine, and it's a 2-hour drive to Portland, Maine, where a lot of the the international everything's there. And when we go down there, there's a couple donut shops that are you can only get these donuts down here. And so I end up buying way too many because I can't eat them fast enough. And then they go they get stale. And I'm like, I don't know why I do this. I'll just go back and get some more. Now I'm throwing away donuts. But I can understand the attraction to getting a specific donut in a specific place. I can see that. Yeah, people do that for all kinds of things. I mean, donuts, you're the first person to have been on this in 125 episodes to say you go somewhere specifically for a donut. So there you go. You're your own person, Joe.
Absolutely. Also for the friends and family and all of that. And, but yes, I mean, come on. Those are, I feel like the people of Seattle don't know how good they've got it. You just get spoiled.
Yes.
You take it for granted. You can get, Top Pot donuts at the supermarket.
Yes.
But yeah, it's really a treasure, and I wish they knew how good they had it. I'm sure some of them do, but you get stuck in your own bubble and you don't realize how good the donuts are, and it's a shame.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. You're on Instagram and Twitter as well. Joe, what's your Instagram handle?
I am on Twitter and Blue Sky. I am Joe Corallo. And then on Instagram, I'm, Corallo Joe. It's just reverse.
But you'll see on Twitter and on Blue Sky, check those out because I'm guessing you'll make announcements on there too of anything that you have going on. So if people want to follow along and those people who have already read and loved Dahlia in the Dark and want more from what you're doing, can find that out on social media there as well. And if you haven't read Dahlia in the Dark, you really should. Stop listening to this podcast and go to your digital reader and buy it or order it or stop by a local comic book shop and get it because it's worth it. I truly have the freedom to do your own podcast, to pick people who I want to talk about stuff with because I want to talk about stuff because I like their stuff. I'm not forced by some sort of upper management person to be like, you know what, Joe has a new book out. Why don't you talk to Joe about something? No, I wanted to talk to you because I liked your book and I like what you're doing. So I keep it up and I'm thanking you for taking some time out to talk to us here.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me. Thank you for plugging Dahlia in the Dark. And also, Beck Star, another great Mad Cave book I did before this. They're not connected in any way, but maybe they are. I don't know. I don't think they are, but if you want to buy a copy and try to figure out if they are, go for it.
Mad Cave sells some great books too, so check that out. And then also, obviously, find She Said Destroy. grab that book too. And Never Ending Party and all kinds of stuff that you're available from you. So again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with us here. We do highly recommend buying Dahlia in the Dark. Anybody out there who wants to read it, buy it for a friend, buy 2 copies, whatever they are. They're not that expensive, people. Come on.
Exactly.
Buy less coffee at the local coffee shop and go buy books. Books will last longer. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Don't skip a movie. Don't go out to a movie one day, because movies, I mean, you go to a movie, buy the popcorn, the soda, you go with you go with a significant other. God forbid you have kids.
Yes.
It's over $100.
Yep.
Before the end of it, when you could have just gotten a copy of Dahlia in the Dark and shared it with your family, read it any time.
Yes, and it doesn't go anywhere.
It's true.
You can read it. You can read it in bed. You can read it on the deck where you're at your pool. You can read it while you're eating a donut. That's what the thing is. That's the moral of the story here.
Yeah. Avoid a glazed donut. You don't want to get the glaze on the.
Well, buy 2 copies. Your donut eating reading copy.
Yeah.
And your non-donut, or you can wear gloves. I don't know. Read your digital so you can wipe your screen off after you did it.
You could be like a crazy person, eat it with a fork and knife, so you're not getting it on your.
Just stick it on a fork, and then you go. And then you can eat.
Yeah.
Then you look even more like a crazy person. Like, what is that person doing over there? I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun chatting with you, and we'll have you on again in the future if you're willing to talk about your future projects and things like that. But again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.